Open eye, feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing in. Hold tight, chemicals collide. Hold tight, hold tight, hold tight. Dripping lights paint the skies, all because of you. Dripping lights paint the skies, only you can make me move. You can make me move.
K-pop fans, welcome back to K-pop Girls.
Welcome to your new
Mark, I'm Bree.
everyone.
Hey, okay. Welcome back, K-drama fans, to our second episode of Drama Talk, where we're going to talk about K-dramas. And this week, we ran a poll about what you would like us to talk about, and I think the options were what we, maybe deeper dive into toxic relationships in K-dramas, or what we consider grapefruits, or spice ratings and different things like that, or individual K-dramas in that one. And then I made a list of some of the K-dramas that we've watched together, and out of that list, Goblin won. So we're going to talk about Goblin today.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, which was one of our favorites. I think one of our top
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
I would say
Top 5. At this point, I feel like I'm gonna wind up with the top 10 because it's hard. I can never be like, there's just one. There's just one, and that's my favorite. It's a variety, a wide range.
Wide range, and it hit a lot of key points that we like in K-dramas, and so yeah, it's I would say it's way up there for me, at least. There was a lot of things I liked about it, but so I think what we'll do is we'll do kind of a warning that there's going to be spoilers. So if you haven't watched Goblin and you don't want to watch or hear spoilers, this is probably not the podcast.
No.
Right now.
Yeah.
So, but the opening of the K-drama, it opens with the sword, and it has a narrator talking about how a goblin is made, and basically, which I didn't pick up till later because I'm a little dense, but basically the reason he became a goblin was because he was killed with the same sword that he used for bloodshed.
Oh, okay.
So that's why he became the goblin.
Okay. See, I missed that too. I missed that too.
Mm-hmm. And so, his sword is sticking out of the ground with a goblin's face on it, and this butterfly lands on it, which was, this key pinnacle point in the whole show that I didn't even realize until way later.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, that's where it started off with, and then we jumped through time quite a bit, kind of piecing past and present together.
Mm-hmm.
We see how he's created into a goblin. We see very important points that follow throughout history, because there's that scene where he's in Paris and he trips an adopted dad or stepdad or something, and then that kid shows up later.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot. Everybody this goblin runs into, you have to pay attention to, because they probably are important later on.
Yeah.
And you have no idea until it happens. It's the web that the writers wove for this K-drama is truly insane
Mhm.
in the best way possible.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So
And I think a lot of that too, showing the times, like the time between when he became a goblin up to when like the present story was going on. I think that
Mm.
was also to get us familiar a little bit with his abilities as well, because with that scene where the father came out and he tripped him on the steps, it showed that he can basically see people's futures.
Mhm.
You know, and so that was like a good little way to show us rather than just telling us.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. So I really do love the storyline. It was well thought out. It was well written. There's something that we talked about in last month's episode where sometimes female leads can be hit and miss for us, but
Yeah.
the female leads and the female side characters were a complete hit for us in this one because they were strong characters, but not.
Witchy.
Yeah. I was trying to look for the correct word that describes it.
That works. Yeah.
Yeah. So, which again, jumping back from past to present, we see where he created his own goblin bride because the only way he can be free from being a goblin, because he lives forever and he has to watch, loved ones die over and over again, which is really sad. And so to be free, he has to have a goblin bride who pulls the sword out of his chest.
Yeah.
And so he ends up creating his own goblin bride
On
because
accident.
on accident. It wasn't like there wasn't goals there.
Yeah.
But he saves a woman's dying and you find out she's pregnant, and he saves this woman from dying that was scheduled to die. And as a result, we have an anonymously omitted baby. So,
Yes. Was never
yeah,
supposed to be born, and now
right.
she is.
And now she is.
Yeah.
And that's our main lead, Untak. And poor girl had it rough. So she was a little bit different from the start because she can now see, because of this divine intervention, she can see ghosts. And so she's a little different. And then her mom passes away when she's little, and she's raised by this god awful aunt.
Yeah. With
Just
god awful cousins.
right.
The whole
Just
family was just god awful to her.
they really were. It was very much so kind of like a Cinderella raised by the evil sister and sibling, or stepmother and siblings
Mhm.
situation. It was just poor baby.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and then we get into basically from that point is when our goblin bride and goblin start meeting,
Right.
and yeah, that's like that's the starting point. Like you got to get through a few episodes of backstory, and then you get to that starting point of when they first see each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also have, a lot of side characters are introduced as well. So you also have like the Reaper,
Right.
who is fantastic. You
Oh
have
my god.
yeah.
Yeah.
You have like the Goblin's nephew, or great nephew, something like that.
Yeah. Nephew down the hall.
Nephew down the hall, yes.
I love him so much.
Absolutely. And then you also have Untox, the Goblin Bride, her boss,
Yes.
who becomes a huge player in this as well.
Yeah. Sunny.
Yeah,
So again, the side characters were just as good as the main characters, which, to be fair to most K-dramas, I would say the side characters, that's usually a theme.
yeah. It's
'Cause I don't
very
know,
rare to come across a K-drama that doesn't have just amazing side characters.
Yeah. Because I think every K-drama we've watched to date all the side characters are just as amazing as the main characters, which is great. And I appreciate it because I loved the Reaper and Sunny wholeheartedly. They were the best. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
No.
And then, of course, their story is completely interwoven with the Goblin. At this point, I'm thinking the whole world is, because I swear to God, everybody he runs across, it's like, oh my God, this person's also connected to the Goblin in some way.
Yeah.
And it's insane. But come to find out, again, spoilers, so watch out.
Yeah. Big spoiler.
The Reaper is the Goblin's brother-in-law from a past life, and Sunny is his sister.
Yeah.
And they were married, and it was so sad. They had a tragic romance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, that had to be rectified.
Yeah.
And was, thankfully.
And what was hard too is because neither one of them knew about their past lives. You know,
Right.
it's not like they knew, and no, the big mystery throughout the show was unraveling their past lives and how that would basically affect the Goblin.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the big things is how the Goblin died was, like we said, he was killed by his own sword, but it was, what is the word I'm looking for here?
It was an ultimate betrayal.
Yeah, it was like the king that he fought to protect for so long
Mm-hmm.
ordered his execution, basically.
Exactly.
And that king is also his brother-in-law, so...
Right, yeah. Because he was jealous of...
The people's love for him.
Right. Yeah.
He was a strong warrior. There wasn't a battle he hadn't won. The people loved him. And what it ultimately came down to, too, is the king just had this just snake of a person.
Squidward.
Yeah. This Squidward advisor in his ear, like filling his head with all this just crap. Like, oh, the people love him more. If he were to try and overthrow you, they would completely support him. They don't care about you. This and that. He was just in his ear constantly and was very much able to manipulate the king and make him this paranoid mess.
Right. And what's sad is that, God, I wrote it down. So Jong Hyun was Squidward. So the advisor. So Jong Hyun was telling him, like, oh, if he would take over it, the people would follow him. Whether that's true or not, whether the people would do that or not, is almost beside the point, because the fact of the matter is that Shin would never do that.
No.
So it wasn't even really a concern.
No.
Shin would have never have taken over as king.
Yeah. But the advisor was just... What it is he wanted complete power over the king. He basically was ruling through the king, because whatever he said, the king did. And what he didn't like is the fact that Shin could be that for the king. He could be that brother-in-law to lean on, that close tie or friend or just like, dang it, words are not working for me today. Like a mentor, almost, because Shin was much older than the king, know, and Shin had promised the king's brother, who was king before him, that he would take care of him and look after him. And the advisor did not like the fact that Shin had the ability and the chance to get so close to the king. And he didn't want Shin basically taking over that spot as advisor, or even just swaying the king away from what the advisor wanted him to do. Yeah, so he needed to turn the king against him, and he made him this paranoid mess, and it worked. It did. It's sad, but it worked.
Yeah, because he completely got in his head to the point where the king, which his name was, oh God, I wrote it down. Where are you? Wang Yo.
Oh, okay.
Wang Yo, I think, was the king's name, or the Reaper's name. So he got into the king's head so much to the point that not only did he execute Shin, But he executed his wife too because
Yeah.
his wife refused to pick sides
Yeah.
because she was truly in love with the king. Like they were truly in love.
Mm.
But at the same time, he was wanting her to turn her back on her brother. And that's all she had,
Yeah.
as far as family goes outside of, and he wanted her or him, the king wanted him to become her everything. Like, you need to just give him up completely, which is just really unfair to ask.
Mhm.
It was like he put her in a me or him situation, and she basically said, you wouldn't make us choose, make me choose if you really cared about me type thing.
Mhm.
And because of that,
Yeah.
he called her a traitor
Yeah.
and executed her too.
Yeah. Because he saw her not willing to give up her brother as her basically denying him or turning away from him. When in reality, she was like, I'm not picking. I'm not
Mhm.
picking. But he took that as a rejection, basically.
Right.
And see, the other thing was too is like he did try to give Shin an out. He was like, "Look, I'm gonna send you to these really challenging, crazy battles, and all you have to do is disappear.
Hmm.
Just disappear. I don't care where you go, just as long as you don't come back here and have someone said word that you died in battle." But instead, Shin kept winning the battles and kept coming home. And so that just helped fuel the paranoia that the king had already had from his advisor. That was almost like see, he obviously is against you because he's not following your orders and he keeps coming back, you know?
Right.
When in
Right.
reality, he kept coming back because he was trying to look after his sister and the king, even though the king was being a jerk to him.
Right, because that advisor, uh, you find out that advisor had poisoned the king's brother.
Yeah.
So there was a king before Wang Yao became ruler,
Mm,
and he had poisoned him because he was a full adult and wasn't as persuasive. And then Wang Yao took the throne as a child.
yeah.
And of course, children are very influential. And he basically raised Wang Yao since he was a little boy and
Yeah.
puppeted him,
Yeah.
sadly.
He got his hooks in
So,
him early.
which I think Shin knew that the older brother was poisoned and was really genuinely trying to look out for the king's safety.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So it's just a whole big old, just sad web. Sad web between all
sad
of them.
web. But it ended with some really happy endings because in the end of all of it, we had Untak, who was kind of cursed as the Goblin's bride. We found out that basically she's not so much a bride as she is a tool
Yeah.
to kind of just is like a means to an end.
Yeah.
And for that to end, she had to pull out the sword from Shin.
Yeah.
And that happened.
Well, yeah,
And
because they
then,
said the longer she waited to pull it out, the more her life was in danger. Because they said as
right,
she got older, as things progressed, her mark of the Goblin Bride, which is also an indication of her seeing spirits, would start to fade away. And once it was gone, she was no longer useful as the Goblin Bride. She could no longer pull out the sword.
yeah,
But her life was in danger because she was an anonymously omitted person. She was never supposed to be born. So Destiny
right,
was constantly trying to fix that wrong by taking her out.
right,
And basically as long as she was the Goblin Bride, as long as Shin was still on Earth, that would keep happening to her until she eventually died.
right. Because what's the use of having a tool if it's not going to be
Useful.
used?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she was in trouble. So then she pulls out the sword. He goes into this. It was so funny because we find out that there's like, it seemed like there was like at least three different levels of deities that we knew of. There was like Shen, who was formerly a human and has divine intervention, and he's kind of like walking karma.
Yeah, basically.
So, and then there was Our
It's-
Lady in
yeah.
Red, which I'm not exactly sure what her role was in it, except for just trying to keep everything on track.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. It felt like she would try to bring those together that needed to be brought together at the right times.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah. So I guess she was almost like destiny in a way.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. Like he was karma, she was destiny or fate.
Right. Yeah.
And
or
then we had
fate.
Butterfly God,
And then we have Butterfly God, who just
which I think he was supposed to be like the ultimate god, like the
Right.
creator, you know?
yeah, like
We call him Butterfly God though.
he always appeared as a butterfly, which was hilarious in some scenes because Shin gave some butterflies a good what for. So, but yeah, the Butterfly God, and oh my god, I'm not sure how I feel about him because, or it, anyways.
We say
Because-
him because he had basically possessed Shin's nephew down the hall. He
Do
possessed
Kwa.
Do Kwa.
Right.
And so that's why we just refer to him as him, because he chose to possess a dude. So it's just
Right.
easier to
Right. Yeah. And I don't know how I feel about Butterfly God. It's
Yeah, I don't know either.
because Butterfly God, when the sword was pulled out, he was like, now God, what did he say? Now you can be at rest.
Yeah, he was
It's
like, now you
like-
can be at peace. That's what he kept
Right.
saying, because it pissed me off for like several episodes. He's like, now everyone can be at peace. My plan has unfolded, and now everyone. No one was at peace. Everyone
No.
was miserable. Screw you for saying everyone's at peace now. No,
Right.
they're not. You're not even paying attention anymore, Mr. Butterfly God.
Right,
You're
and
just
he took-
being mean.
He took everybody's memories away. Well, at least Untak's memories away. And like she couldn't remember.
Oh, Dokwa
Shin.
too. Dokwa didn't remember him either.
Oh, that's right. He took Dokwa's memories away too. Yeah, so he took pretty much everybody's memories away except for Reaper and Sister Sunny.
I think he
And-
tried to take Sunny's away, but she had the kiss of memory, so I don't think he could like
I mean,
undo
that
that.
was him.
So
anyways, yeah. So he took everybody's memory of Shen away, but then like it was frustrating because he's like everybody can be at peace, but even though Untak couldn't remember Shen, she still had like a ghost of a memories. Like she was hella unhappy.
right,
But
like she
she
could
couldn't
feel
figure out
something
why.
was wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like, dude, your plan did not work.
Right now, she's like she lost a lot of her spunk, a lot of her sunshine and spirit. She was
Mhm.
depressed. She had to take medication. She was having night terrors. Like she would start breaking down crying for no reason, and she had no idea why she was so like why she was crying this bad. Don't sit there and tell me, oh, she's at peace now. Screw
Right.
you, okay? That's
Right.
just
It's no peace. And it sure the hell wasn't Shin, because dude wandered the what is it? What is Siberia? Is that what's like the frozen wasteland? He wandered the frozen wasteland for like a
Basically.
decade.
Yeah.
That ain't happiness there. I'm just telling you.
yeah. You're at peace now in the snow, wandering around
Right.
for 10 years.
Right.
don't know
Though
about
Shin
you,
did
Dap.
choose that. He chose that though. Kind of. He chose to wander that. But
Well, it's either that or
Regardless.
sit in it. It's not much
No,
better.
I think no, because he was like, I'm just going. Like he literally decided to stay there. In the
Oh.
like, I think there was another option, but he just decided to stay there for
Oh.
whatever reason.
But still, even then, the butterfly god was still like, well, you're at peace now. Like, I would have stood there and looked at him and been like, really?
This is not my peace. I'm hella sad. That's why I'm walking in the snow.
Right? Like,
So-
you might be able to lie to yourself and pat yourself on the back and be like, everyone's at peace now. But there's a difference between reality and fiction, and you are living in fiction, sir. Okay?
Right.
Ain't nobody at
Take-
peace.
Take your butterfly ass somewhere else because it ain't here.
Right? Right.
But he gets out of the abyss. Everything comes back together. Everything's looking great. Except for now, Sunny's like, can't get over the fact that, because she remembers past life and everything, she can't get over the fact that her husband killed her, which I get. I'd be a little bitter too.
Right.
So, and then what else? There was, oh, and finally we're like, oh, well, finally, Shin and Untak get to be together, and she's like 30 now, or almost close to 30.
Yeah.
That's awesome, because she was like early 20s, like teenager to early 20s.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank God, finally.
Right? We
And everybody-
the whole show we're like, man, when is there gonna be a time jump where she gets just a little bit older? Just a
Right?
little bit. And I know there
Right.
were a few patrons that were like, it's really not that big of a deal. I understand that this was our main issue with the show. We loved everything about it. But we just wish the writers could have made her just a little bit older. I don't know why they couldn't. I don't see I don't see how that would have changed anything by making her just a little bit older to where she wasn't a minor, because technically
Right.
she was a minor for a good portion of the show. And then she turned 20 and all of a sudden was like, romance me. It was like, honey, you were a minor like 5 minutes ago. You're not getting a
Right.
romance. Calm down. Okay.
Right? Yeah. That was like one of my biggest grievances of the show was just the age thing. And I get that, like, for most people, it's like, it's not that big a deal, which I do understand, because I've talked about it before. I have a tendency to like older guys, and I would probably date someone 15 years older than me, and not have an issue with it at all. So it's not like I'm like, oh, it's so horrible. I get it. But at the same time, it's just, I don't know, because she was
A minor. It's the
A minor.
illegal aspect of it, I think, that makes it so
Right.
tricky. It's like, I wouldn't mind the age gap if she was like, I don't know, make her like 22, 23, 24, 25, somewhere in there,
right.
And him still be, however old he was. I wouldn't mind that. It's the fact that she was underaged that
Exactly.
was worrisome. And even he, for a good portion of the show, called her a child, like he acknowledged the fact that she... Anyways, let me fix something real quick, sorry. All right, sorry about that. My TV just magically turned on all by itself, and it was somebody screaming and fighting. But it was very much the fact that she was underage. That was the
Right.
issue, And we even brought up, because when we first started watching the show, we're like, it's not going to bother us, because we at first would compare it to like Twilight, in the sense that the main couple in Twilight had this gigantic age gap because he was like hundreds of years old and she was like 16.
Mm.
The thing that started becoming really obvious to us and bothered us was, so as comparison, in Twilight, the main dude, Edward, yeah, he's like hundreds of years old, but he stopped aging at 16, 17, somewhere. He stopped aging as a teenager,
Right.
so he still looked like a teenager. So seeing them together, there's not that big glaring, you can see it and be like, are y'all family? Like, whereas in Goblin, Shin was very much an adult when he
Right.
became the Goblin. I mean, at this point, he had basically already raised his sister almost,
Mhm.
like this dude had to have been at least in his 30s
Right.
Okay. So that's why it's, I guess, harder to digest, because you can see that he's much older than her.
Right.
You know, had he been turned into the Goblin when he was like early 20s, it probably wouldn't have bothered us that much. But the fact
Right.
is that he was so much older when he was turned, and so there's this glaring, clearly he's an adult, clearly she's still a child, you know.
Right. Well, and not that I would have wanted it any other way, because that would have been hella creepy, but also when she was underage, when she was like in high school and underage and still in her school uniform, when he looked at her as like a dad would look at a daughter, or like an older brother would look at like a little sister. And it was hard to, not that I wouldn't want him to look at her differently
It was
at
hard
those
to
ages.
transition.
But it was a very hard transition for me to go, especially like, okay, like you said 5 minutes ago, you were underage, and now he's supposed to look at you like an adult woman that he's interested in. It was
Yeah.
a hard switch for me
No.
to make, and I was just like, I ain't feeling it, guys.
Yeah. It
So
made the romance harder to digest,
yeah,
you know.
right.
And like I said,
So
we got a lot of feedback on it. You know, there was a lot of people that tried to, break it down to us in different ways to try and help us, I guess, feel more comfortable about it. Some people were like, well, the whole legal age. I think someone argued like there's the whole legal age thing because it's drilled into our heads. That's why we have such an issue with it. But if it were not illegal or not drilled into our heads that way, we wouldn't have an issue with it. I don't know about that. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. They're basically saying like because of the social construct of underage and of age, that's why we had an issue with it. And then there were some people that said, well, back when Shin was alive, when he was a human, back in those days, they did marry and date very young because, life expectancy back in those days was not what it is today.
Right.
And I get that argument. Problem is we not back in those days. We back,
Right.
we in the present. So it's a little different now. And it's just, I don't know. I don't see the purpose in her being so young. I don't understand why that was why that had to happen. It didn't seem to really affect the storyline in any way other than make like people like us feel just slightly uncomfortable with it. It didn't contribute to the plot. It didn't yeah, we had the moment of when she turned 20, but
Right.
it was like a moment and it came and went in 5 minutes,
The only other moment I can think of that it maybe contributed to, and I think it could have been altered to where they could have aged her up, would have been the part where her mom had left her money and there was bank books that was like keeping track of the money, and these bank books were hidden that even Untak didn't know where they were at. And it was like one of the things that her aunt had an issue with her. She was constantly, screaming at her about like, where are the bank books at? Nobody knew where these bank books were at. And they had to have these bank books to access this inheritance money that Untak had from her mom. Well, come to find out, these bank books were left at the high school, and one of the ghosts that Untak talked to at the high school knew about these bank books. And when Untak it was after she turned 20, after she graduated, she finally figured out that these bank books were in this locker.
Yeah.
And pieced it all together, and figured out that this ghost was one of her mom's friends.
Yeah.
And pieced it all together and found the bank books. I think you could have easily had some friend ghost at like a subway station with a subway locker or something like that. That it didn't have to be high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think the other thing they tried to do was try to keep her under her aunt's thumb. And so that's probably why they tried to use the underage thing was because her aunt had guardianship of her. But in reality, that didn't really contribute a whole lot to the story. Like, she was with her aunt for maybe an episode or two before her aunt basically disappeared, you know? And then it was
Right.
no longer relevant. She was still underage, she was still a minor, but she wasn't underneath her aunt anymore. Her aunt later on came back down the line, but it wasn't, the whole storyline with the aunt just didn't feel super relevant or necessary. Like, you could have taken it out and it probably still wouldn't have changed the story, you know?
Right.
Or just changed it a little bit and it still wouldn't have changed the story, you know?
I think you could have even have kept the aunt element because the aunt was indebted. She assumed she was going to get these bank books, this inheritance. So she made a whole bunch of loans through a loan shark and couldn't make the payments. And that was like one of the added stresses is that there was now these loan sharks too on top of it all. And you could have still had that element and still had the aunt basically saying, you know, if you want your money, go after my niece. I don't think you needed her to be living with her aunt necessarily.
Yeah,
Or
she
she
didn't need
could
to
have
be.
been as an adult, she could have been living with her aunt.
Yeah,
Like
she could still
Brent,
be indebted to her because she raised her, you know, even though
right?
she's an adult, you know?
Right? Rent's hella expensive. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, I just don't think the underage thing was necessary. I don't think it needed
Right.
to happen. I think you could have adjusted it. The writers could have adjusted it and it wouldn't have been an issue. It wouldn't have
Right.
changed anything to just
Right.
make her just a couple years older. And then of
Right.
course once we did do that time jump that we waited for forever for, we were able to better support the romance. We were able to really enjoy the romance in those last few episodes and enjoy the spiciness and enjoy all of that because they was closer in age now, sort of.
right? Right? So, yeah, and then finally, Untalk and Shin were happy. There was trouble with our Reaper and Sunny though. And I was hoping that that would get worked out, but then everybody died.
Right? It was like out of the blue, everyone died. Wait, what happened? What?
Right? Like Untalk, like I appreciate her death because she was saving like a whole school bus full of kids. That was very heroic. It was so sweet. But seriously? Like,
Right?
seriously? And then we like fast forward and like Sunny dies because she ran away. Nobody could find her. She ran away, dies of old age. And then I was like, what?
Right? Right? And then the
Oh my
Reaper
God.
was eventually let go from his duties as a Reaper.
Right.
And
He was retired and like Shin was alone. I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
right?
Everybody died.
Yep. Everybody
Shin was
died and
left
Shiv
alone.
was alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank God it didn't end there though.
Right.
There was a quick wrap up at the end where
Jump like
Wang
20
Yao-
or 30 years down the line.
it was a while. It was a while because Wang Yao was reincarnated, Sunny was reincarnated. They ended up together because she became an actress, which was so fitting.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Oh my God.
He became
And
a
then-
cop.
He became a cop again. Felt very fitting
Yeah.
for his character. And like they like
Met working on a movie set. Like he was like you know how sometimes I guess like police force like help with movies and stuff, like giving their input of like this is how it really is, so that way the shows and stuff can be more realistic. That's what he was doing. He was there helping and they was bickering.
it was great.
It was
It was
fantastic.
great. And then they ended up hooking up in a hotel room,
Yeah.
which was funny.
Yeah.
Because they got like, I know this isn't even an important part, but it just stuck in my brain because they went into this hotel room. There was like one room left. They take the keys as they're walking off. There's like a couple that comes in behind them and needs a hotel room for some reason. And she was like, you didn't hear them. And he was like, hear what? And they just walk off to
Right?
the hotel room.
We are not giving up our room, okay?
I know.
Oh
were
my
committed.
gosh. They were.
It was hilarious.
And I understand the point for them too, because for them, because I kept saying for a while there, why did everyone have to die? I don't see why. But I really do eventually understand why everyone had to die and restart their
Right.
lives, basically. So for, Wang Yao, because he was a Reaper, he was technically already dead,
Right.
So he needed to be reborn because he wasn't alive anyways. And then Sunny's whole thing was, she ran away because the memories and the pain of what happened between her and Yao were just so hard and hurt so bad. She couldn't face him or face really any of it. That's why she ran away. So when she died, when they both died and were about to be reincarnated, they like connected. They were both at the little tea shop at the same time. They both drank the tea together and that kind of stuff. So they got to see each other before being reincarnated. So for him, he, had to be reincarnated because he was a Reaper and already dead. For her, when she was reincarnated, she didn't have those memories of her past life anymore. She didn't have that baggage of their past relationship and all that pain still on her. They were able to get a fresh start.
Mm-hmm.
And I just loved that for them. I really did. As for Untalk, I mean, the whole reason she had to die is because she was still cursed. Once Shin came back, she could see, because when he was gone to punish him, it might have been partly that too. I think a lot of it though was also like she just couldn't face it anymore,
Right.
because she had held out for so long and was like, I just can't do this no more.
Right, because with the past memory, I mean, this is just my opinion, but with the past memory of knowing, because she remembered everything. She remembered the fights and everything of like that past memory of the complete betrayal of saying, like, of him saying, me or him, like, you have to pick your brother or me, and the fact that he executed her,
Yeah.
or at least had her executed. That's a lot of pain.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pain. That's a lot of betrayal to
Yeah.
live with, and to have to stare him in the face knowing all that, that's a lot.
Yep. And yeah, I do think some of it was to punish him as well. But I think a lot of it too was she just was like, I can't do this no more, and I need some kind of peace in this life, and I'm not gonna get it being here,
Right.
But so like, okay, like I was saying though, with Untalk, with her being reborn, she had to be reborn because she was still cursed. When Shin was gone and wandering the wastelands in his afterlife, she could no longer see ghosts. She wasn't the Goblin Bride anymore. She didn't have the mark. She was just a regular person. But that also meant that she, wasn't going to be hunted down by Reapers constantly. The second Shin came back, she got that curse again. Her mark reappeared. She could see ghosts again. And that threat of Reapers coming after her because she's an anonymously omitted person, all of that came back with him.
Yeah.
So she had to die and be reborn to basically free herself of that curse. Once she was reborn, she was no longer an anonymously omitted person. Her next life was planned. It was supposed to happen. There's nobody that's going to come hunt her down to fix their paperwork,
Right.
She needed to get that off. And I understand that. Mind you, I still have an issue with the end of it because she didn't drink her tea. You got to drink the tea, okay? If you want to be reincarnated, you got to drink the tea in order to forget your past life. And she was like, I ain't doing that because I need to remember him and I need to remember everything so I can find him again. So she didn't drink the tea. So when she was reincarnated, she still had all her memories and everything of them two together. Problem is when they do finally reconnect again, she's in high school again, okay?
Right?
Why could we not have made her like again? I don't understand it. I don't understand why she couldn't have been like
20, 41, 22. But why high school again?
Right?
Why
Right?
couldn't she have been a college student? Because what it was is like he's in Canada, the land of what was it? The land of
Maple
maple.
syrup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's in Canada, and he's standing because it's like this grave site. One of them's his grave for, I think,
Yeah.
and then a bunch of like his, because he has like these assistants and butlers and stuff that have been helping him for generations and generations, which we will get to that in 1 second. He's standing there, and then you see her walking like across the hill in a school uniform.
Well, because they even said, didn't he even hear from like
He was
someone in the
supposed to-
hotel that there was like a group of high schoolers from Korea visiting?
Yeah.
And she was in that group.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I get she's 18 again, which again, like in our world, that's legal. But in Korea, that's not legal. You know?
Right.
That's still underage. And if it's illegal over there, I don't understand why we couldn't just make her 20. Like 2 years older? We couldn't just make her 2 years older?
Right.
Like if
Why
they
couldn't
really
it have
need that
been a
whole school
group-
trip, she could have went on a school trip with like college friends. Like
Right? Why couldn't it have been a college group trip? Why couldn't it have been? Because I know that happens.
Yeah. Well, no, I know. But I'm saying, like, I understand 18, 19 to us. So, sorry, I forgot. We got to read comments because in the podcast, you can't see what's going on. So someone says, when I say 18, I mean 19 over there. So they said she was 18 again when she came back. So I get that. But 18 and 19, again, like in the US and Canada, that kind of stuff, that's legal. But in Korea, the legal age is 20. So 18, 19, she's still technically underage under their laws. And that's why it just doesn't fully sit right with me. I don't understand the point in it. Like, and I know some people are like, it's really not that big of a deal. I get that. But that's my point. It's
Right.
not that big of a deal. You could have made her a year older and it wouldn't have changed anything. Like, it felt like the writers purposely were like, we want to make her underage. I don't know why, but they wanted to make her underage. They didn't have to, but they wanted that so badly that they even had her come back underage at the end.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why they wanted that so bad, but they wanted that so bad. And it really wasn't that big of a deal. You could have made her a year older and it wouldn't have been a big deal. For the rule of 9.
Oh, because but that was gone though. I get that for the rule of 9, because every 9 years a Reaper would show up to,
Yeah.
I get that, but that rule was now null and void because she was on her second life.
Yeah, she didn't have that curse no more.
So again, I'm just like, but why couldn't we just, I don't know. That was my only grievance. Well,
Yeah.
that was not my only grievance. We'll get on to the part
Like I
where I'm
said-
talking about the generation of,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I just want to clarify. I know we're raving about it now. In all honesty, though, it didn't affect us so much so that we couldn't enjoy the show. Like, we
Yeah.
would talk about it for a while afterwards, but it didn't take away our enjoyment of the show or our love for the show and the story and the characters. Like, did
Right.
we wish they could have changed the age thing? Yes. Did it really affect us in the fact that we couldn't enjoy it? I wouldn't say it affected us in the fact that we couldn't enjoy it. It was harder to get fully invested in the romance aspect of the main couple for a
Yeah.
while. But it didn't.
And maybe that's just
Make it
an
that
us
bad.
problem, but it just is one of those obstacles where personally we could not, we struggled to get over it. But at the same time, I would still recommend this show to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like anyone that would be like, hey, I'm really wanting to get into K-dramas. What are some you? This would be one of them where I'd be like, you have got to watch
Yeah.
Goblin. It is by far one of the best.
Yeah.
And so,
And
yeah.
that was our thing too. See, on Patreon, what we do is we watch 2 dramas on Patreon. We watch our pick drama where me and Mer take turns picking dramas that we want to watch, and then we also have our K Cordy pick drama where we throw up a big poll and Patreon K Cordys vote on it, and whatever wins, that's what we watch. So everyone there was like a huge Goblin won by like a huge margin, if I remember correctly. A lot of people wanted us to watch it. But they also gave us a lot of warnings. They're like, heads up, there's an age gap. Like, and like that's what I would do if I would be like, just to let you know, there is an age gap, but you should still watch it because it's freaking amazing.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were warned, and that's why we went into it going, oh, it's not going to bother us that bad. This is like Twilight. He like
Yeah,
several
because,
hundred years old, and she's
Yeah.
a teenage. But it's because of that glaring, obvious difference, and the fact that he
Right.
was turned into a
Right.
goblin.
Right. Before
As an
anybody
adult.
says you guys weren't biased, we really didn't, because we were like, we have no issue with age gaps. We are
Right?
actually really cool with age gaps. We
went
don't
into
mind
it
at
like
all.
this is not an issue. Like everyone
Not
was
an
like,
issue.
they were like, seriously, there's an age gap. Like a lot of people warned us. They were like, it might be triggering to you, and we're like, no, it's gonna be fine. It's not gonna bother us at all. We had no bias going into it. We're like, this is no big deal.
Right.
It wasn't until later on that we're like, okay, you know what? Maybe this is just a little bit of a deal. A little deal.
Little deal. And it again, it wasn't like a breaker for us.
No.
Like I still love this show. It's just I'm just like, but why? That's all. That's all.
Yeah.
It's just but why?
But why?
Yeah. So,
I do have to say though, I do love that scene because I just find it so funny. The 20th birthday scene. I just find it so funny because she's like, I'm 20 now. I want alcohol. There was something else. Like alcohol, food, and romance.
yeah.
And she was like, the way she did it was just so hilarious to me. He was like, okay, alcohol we can do. I can fulfill that one. Let's go. And so he takes her drinking. So then she's like drunk and she's like, okay, now time for the romance. And he's like, no. And she's like,
Right.
yes. and it was such a comical scene.
It really
So,
was.
it was.
They handled it well. I will give them that. You know, they handled it well.
Yeah, I do appreciate the way they handled it because it wasn't like he was thirsting after her while she was underage.
Right.
It wasn't like the second she turned 20, he was like, let's go. You know, he was very respectful and kept in mind the fact that she was so young, and he took things so slow, probably too slow for her. So I really do appreciate the way that was handled.
Yeah, I do think they handled the situation very well.
And
so
no
I will-
spicy happened until she was like 29, okay? So that was good.
Right. Yes. So, yes, very much so appreciative of that. It was very fluffy and cute more than sexy. It was,
Agreed.
which I appreciate. I
Yes.
did. And I did like, I usually don't like fluffy romances, but in this case, it worked really well.
did.
I think it worked for the characters' personalities.
Yeah.
I think it worked for the storyline. I think it worked for the situation. It worked
Yeah.
very well. It
And
was
there was-
handled very tastefully.
Yeah, and there was a touch of sexy at the end too, which was nice, you know? But I do agree. I do love the way they handled the romance. Found it funny because since she was so young and had this bubbly personality, it almost brought out like a youthful side in him to where he it was like he turned into like a high school boyfriend where he was
Right.
like getting jealous. And it was just
Right.
it was so funny to see him switch from this, you know, goblin god
Right.
who's been around for hundreds of years to all of a sudden he is hella pissed at this baseball player who is
Right.
batting his eyes at his girl. It
And
was
she was
so funny.
living for it. She was
So
living
funny.
for it. It was great.
Mhm.
And I do have to add that because of her young, fun, energetic personality, she genuinely made him happy and
Yeah.
more youthful, probably for the first time in his entire life.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it seemed like he raised his sister. So you have this guy like way back, way back in like ancient times.
Yeah.
He raised his sister. So you have this guy who was put with the burden of a sibling and raising this child that technically isn't his, even though it's a sibling, you know. And he was a warrior, and it was a lot of negative in his life.
Well, a lot
Now
of
his
stress, a lot of
his sister brought him joy, but there
Yeah.
was a lot of stress that went along with it. And then you have someone that you care about, the king, not only betray you, but take out the only person you care for.
yes.
You know, and he thought that his sister was in trusted hands too when, you know, they got married and stuff. So the guy had a rough life, and then he lived hundreds of years alone, having to watch people that he cared about pass away over and over again. And finally, this girl shows up that just genuinely makes him happy because she's so quirky.
Yeah. So she did it for both Goblin and Reaper because Reaper also didn't have a childhood. I agree. She brought that for the Reaper as well.
She did.
She was like the quirky glue that brought the Reaper and the Goblin together.
It was a weird family. Well, Sunny too. It was a weird family, and she was the centerpiece to this family that just held it all together. So it was. I appreciated that.
She brought the grapefruit out in everyone.
She did. Sunny was kind of she was a bit of a rain cloud at first. Like and then finally her quirky personality started to, I mean, she kind of was quirky in a gloomy way, but then she became more lively the more she was around Untak and the Goblin and the Reaper. She became more of what she was in the past.
Yeah.
In her first life or second life, I'm not sure. Sunny was on. I'm not sure.
I don't remember.
In the end, they told you what life everybody was on.
I think she was on her second or third life.
Yeah.
Untak's, that was her first life.
Her was her first life. And so when she came back, that was her second life. But yeah, I just think she was on her third life. And I'm not sure what Yao Wang or Wang Yao. Wang Yao was on.
Yeah, I don't
Maybe
remember.
He was on his third too. I don't know. I don't remember. It gave everybody's that was having reoccurring lives. It gave it, but then it was a lot. The wrap up at the end was a lot.
A lot to digest and take in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And amongst that, there could have been more though, because poor Dubois, what the hell?
This is our second grievance about the show, and honestly, I might be more mad about this than the age thing.
I am more mad about this. This is my grievance for the show, and I am more mad about Dubois' ending than I am about anything else.
Yeah.
What hell?
Yeah. So basically, let's get into Dubois a little bit. So Dubois, like we said, he is the Goblin's several greats down the line nephew. Okay, nephew down the hall. He has been trained by his grandfather, who was basically the assistant to Goblin for so long, to take his place, to be there to take care of Shin as he, gets older, to train the next generation to take care of Shin, as well as the company, because they also ran Shin's company. So he was raised to help the Goblin and take care of the company and that kind of stuff. And he was in love with his credit card. He was a spoiled rich boy and he loved it. But you know what? He was hella extra and a super grapefruit. And we loved him for it. He was just over the top personality. So funny. Sometimes in shows, there's like that super spoiled rich person and I'm like so annoyed with them. But he was so quirky and extra that it just worked.
I mean, he was super rich and spoiled. But the fact of the matter is that he was in love with his credit card, but he and his credit card were not together.
No, his grandpa took it. He was like, you too spoiled and rich. You need to learn to work from the bottom up. I'm taking your card.
Right.
So.
And he, his whole motivation throughout the whole show was to get his credit card. Yeah. And it was precious. It really was.
It was. At one point, Shin thought he was going to die. He thought, okay, Untak's going to pull out the sword. This is going to be it. I am writing all my goodbye notes and I'm giving everyone everything. He gave the Reaper his house and he gave Dubois a credit card and all of this. And then he didn't die. And everyone at first was like, yay! But then everything hit and they were like, he was like, I want my house back and I want my credit card back. And all of a sudden they were like.
And 5,000 won? 5,000 won? Because Untak wanted 5,000 won and he gave it to her.
Yeah.
I think. Pretty sure.
And a purse. Very expensive purse.
And he
wanted it all back. All back.
All of it.
The disappointment on Dubois' face when he realized his credit card was getting taken again. he was like, I forgot what it was. There was the lines in that scene were so great because he like tried to suck up to Shin like but I love you. I'm happy you're back. And then like the Reaper's like, this is what I need to do to keep the house. I love you too. I like
Right. Our bromance is strong.
right.
Give me your house.
Give me your house. But yeah, so with Dokwa, by the end of it, you know, he forgets who Shin is because Butterfly God erased his memory when Shin does die. When he comes back, Shin has to basically reveal everything to him again. And at this point, Dokwa's grandfather had passed away right before. Oh, 5,000. Oh, okay. 5 million won. Okay.
Okay.
So before Shin had died, Dokwa's grandfather passed away, which is very sad. It was a very touching moment. I think both of us cried a little bit. And so because Dokwa was not yet ready to take over the company, the grandfather's personal assistant was then named as head of the company and was meant to basically fill that role until Dokwa was able to. So when Shin dies and he comes back, none of them remember him, but the grandfather had left a note for his past assistant, who is now the CEO, of like, if Kim Shin shows up, this is his story, this is what's going on, this is what, like, everything they needed to know for whenever Shin was to come back. So the CEO was like, okay. The second Kim Shin popped up, he was like, okay, I get it now. This is, got it. Dokwa took him a little while. He was like, really? You're a god, really? How many uncles are you to me? Like, he was like, he had all kinds of questions. But you know, he adjusted. And then at some point he has a heart-to-heart with the CEO, and he's like, maybe it's time for me to settle down. Maybe it's time for me to grow up and get a family, have a family, you know, maybe it's time for me to make those steps. That's the last we heard from him. Okay? That was the last we heard from him.
Yeah.
Untak dies, everyone dies, except for Dokwa. And then we jump 20, 30 years in the future, and we get a wrap-up for everyone except Dokwa. Like,
literally, even the assistant, the grandpa's assistant was even brought up.
Yeah,
like
that
he
was now
was
CEO?
his car, right? His car broke down, and
the Goblin had bumped into some random guy and was like,
right.
The guy was like, I'm out of work and I'm having a hard time. And he was like, go this way and you're going to run into someone having car trouble, help them, and they'll help you, basically.
Right.
And it was the CEO.
Right. Yeah. And so we even saw him, but yet there was no Dokwa to be seen. Like, did Dokwa get married? Did Dokwa have kids? Did Dokwa get united with his goddamn credit cards? We have no idea.
I was so mad. This was literally my theory. I was like, you know what they could have done? And it would not have costed them anything extra or a whole lot of time or anything. It would have taken like 2 seconds. Is when that CEO runs into this random mechanic guy and the guy stops to like help him with his car, just have Dokwa like step out of the back of the car. Credit card falls on the ground. He picks it up and is like, "Oh, my love," and kisses it. And at least we know he's got his credit card back and he's good. You know,
right?
Like, why can't we just get that? I would have been happy with that.
I would have been happy with that. He would have been reunited with his true love, and that would have been enough.
Yes, but we got nothing.
My God.
Now, we were told in the comments that there was an ending for Dokwa, but the writers were like, we don't have enough time. We go take it out. Bad choice. Fail. That's a fail. He deserved an ending, okay? He was a big enough character. He deserved an ending.
I loved him so much, and it was so disappointing because I was waiting. I was like, oh, okay. Shinonutok's ending? Perfect. Cool. Happy. Sunny and Wang Yao's ending? Cool. Happy. Love it. We get to see assistant? Cool. Happy. Love it. It was really fast, but love it.
Even Red Lady. Got to see her down the line.
We got to see Lady in Red. Cool. Then the end.
Yeah, no
I was
Dokwa.
Like, where's Dokwa? What?
Right? He was literally
Right?
God at one point, okay? When he was possessed by the butterfly god, he was literally God. How can you not give a character who was literally God for a portion of the show an ending? How?
Right?
It blows my mind. It blows my mind.
Right? And you can't tell me that the writers didn't like extra ass characters because everybody was so freaking extra in this show.
Yeah.
And to have Dokwa be so freaking extra and to be like, his character isn't important enough to try to wiggle it in an ending for. Screw that. Wiggle one in. Even if it's just him sitting at home stroking his credit card. I
Right?
don't care. Something.
Like I said, it would have literally taken 2 seconds to just show him with his credit card, and I would have been
Right?
good.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
Oh, so disappointed. So
That was
disappointed.
my biggest grievance with the entire show.
Yeah.
Was the fact that Dokwa did not get an ending.
Yeah.
It was so disappointing.
Yeah. Yep. But it is what it is, unfortunately.
Right.
But at least I will say one of the things that this show did fantastically was give us a wide range of grapefruits.
Oh my god. Oh
So,
my god.
If you're new to our drama reactions or anything, dramatic grapefruits, we started using that term after True Beauty because there was a grapefruit and he was dramatic. So now anyone that is like super extra or dramatic or over the top, they are dramatic grapefruits.
Mhm.
And this show was filled with them. Everyone in
Oh
this
my
show
God.
was a dramatic grapefruit at some point in time.
I mean, even Squidward, in his own way, was a dramatic grapefruit.
Yeah.
I mean, he was dramatic. He
By
was
the-
a very rotten grapefruit.
By the way, we call him Squidward. I don't think we explained this because when we got to see his ghost, his
Yeah, 'cause he comes
mouth
back
was
as a
full of
ghost.
like ink,
Ink.
like a squid or something. You know, he was very gross as a
It was
ghost. That was the grossest ghost
nasty.
we've seen.
Right? And we could never remember his name. And again, I have to look at Jong Hyun.
Okay. Squidward.
So, but we can never remember his name. So we were like, fuck it, Squidward.
Yup.
So, that's how that happened.
Yeah.
But yeah. But the goblin, oh my god, dramatic ass grapefruit.
Yes.
Untak was a grapefruit.
Reaper.
Holy crap.
See,
He was a grapefruit. Sunny was a grapefruit. Dokwa was a grapefruit.
even his grandfather had some grapefruit moments.
He was very.
The assistant was a grapefruit. You wouldn't know it right away, but he was a K-pop stan through and through. There were like several times where he started singing and dancing to K-pop songs, and I was like, "Oh my god, I love him."
Yeah. Because there was something. Okay, they were looking for, I think, a gift for Untak,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they were discussing a K-pop concert tickets, I think. And the assistant was just like,
I want to say it was EXO. I want to say
Was
the
it-
two groups that he sung in the. And I could be wrong, but I want to say it was EXO, and then I think at one point he did twice.
Oh, I thought he did BTS once too.
Oh,
Or
he
he
might
at
have done
least
BTS
brought
too.
up. He at least brought up BTS because I
Yeah.
swear he said BTS at one point in time.
Yeah,
And I was yeah.
but
There
the,
was a
like
lot of
doing the
K-pop,
song and
though.
dance though, I was like, "This is everything." I love
Right?
it.
It
I love
was
it.
so perfect. EXO,
Yes.
BTS, don't remember. Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't know if he sang the BTS song. He might have. Maybe he did.
There was a lot of K-pop brought up.
There
because
was.
there was EXO was brought up, BTS was brought up. They were in a cafe somewhere, and Icon was
Icon.
on the screen, and like Shin was staring down the screen, was like, "Do you think that could be him? You think that could be somebody from the past?" Because he thought Bobby
Bobby?
was
From Icon could have
like his
been.
brother-in-law.
Yeah, he was like, "That could be him." It's like, Shin, I don't know where you getting this from. Where did we start this line of thought? Why?
Why
Poor
Bobby?
Bobby. He
Poor
was ready.
Bobby.
He was like, he was ready to go after him. I was
Right?
like, please don't.
Bobby hide. I don't know why he's got his sights on you, but hide. But yeah, I really appreciate the K-pop element to it. And maybe it was because either the writers were K-pop fans, which I don't blame them, or because Sung Jae was in it. But I love
That was my only thing that was like,
Oh, you're muted,
wouldn't-
I think.
Oh, shoot. Okay, that was my only thing. Like, wouldn't it have been even more hilarious? Like, I love the fact they had Icon in there, but if it was like B2B,
Right?
and so it's like you could see like Sung Jae in B2B,
That would've
and
been-
I just thought it would have been funny.
You know what? If they would have had a moment where B2B was on the screen and had even like Sung Jae on there, and then Do Kwa be like, man, that's a handsome guy. I would have
Right?
busted
I
out.
could have totally
laughing.
seen him doing that too. I could totally have seen him doing that.
I at one point thought the king was one of the produce girls, and he was ready to forgive him if he was.
So the produce girls? I don't remember that part. They're saying at one point Shin thought the king was one of the produce girls, and he was ready to forgive him if he was.
Produce girls.
I don't know. I don't remember that part. I don't know. It's hard in these shows. There's a lot right after the
Right
icon
after the
moment,
icon. Oh, well, see, I got so caught up with.
we might have
Bobby.
missed it. Yeah,
I probably missed it.
it's we try to catch everything, but we not perfect. We do not catch everything.
Right.
That's why
I
Kate
just-
Cordy's love pointing stuff out for us, and we seriously appreciate it because there's some things that we would not have known otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. So I probably missed that one. Yeah. Because I was so caught up in the fact that he was ready to take Bobby out.
Right.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, everyone was just if we had to do like grapefruit ratings for this show, I feel like for the most part, the main cast and most of the side characters would be like a 10 out of 10.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
This is probably like, I know our grapefruit the whole grapefruit thing started with True Beauty.
It has
But
carried over to everything.
It has carried over to everything. We look for grapefruits in everything. We want the grapefruits. So, but yeah, I would agree. A 10 out of 10 grapefruit rating because they were so perfect. And a part of that is like the bromance between the Reaper and the Goblin. Oh my God. If you love a bromance, this is the show for you.
Yes.
This is the best bromance I think I have ever seen.
Agreed.
Holy crap. It was up there.
Yeah.
I loved it. It kind of makes me sad though, because like in the past, I'm like, y'all could have been awesome together.
Right.
Like as brother-in-laws with Sunny there.
His mind
just
was so
saying.
twisted from Squidward though.
I know. But the potential was so
Yeah.
there. Which also makes me a little sad that when Sunny and the Reaper did move on to the next life, that he wasn't really connected with either of them anymore. He just had kind of solace that they were okay and that they were going to be happy together, but he wasn't really involved. And it's like, that really sucks because they are really all great together. I'm
Yeah.
just going to pretend that they all end up being
Best friends.
best friends in the end. Yeah. Because I need that.
Yeah. Because this
So-
show really is like the bromance in this. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, with all our grievances, we still liked the romance. It was very cute. We were able to get on board with that. The romance between Sunny and Yao was very nice. Loved that as well. I loved their connection. But in all honesty, the bromance might have been the best relationship in this entire show.
Absolutely. In my opinion, absolutely. Yeah.
The connection and all honesty, when you bring like, I know this is like, when I went into this, I was like, this is all about the Goblin Bride. This is all about, in all honesty, when you look at the whole show and you break down the entire plot, it's really not about Talk that much. It really
No.
is about Yao and Shin and unraveling the mystery of their past and who they are now and how to fix that and move on and how
Right.
that impacts everything, because that impacted everything. Their relationship impacted everything, even down to Squidward. The whole reason Untalk had to pull the sword, which, I mean, she didn't really had to. She was kind of forced to. He used her hands to do it. But the whole reason she pulled the sword out of Shin's chest was because Squidward was trying to kill her. And
Right.
the only way he could kill Squidward was with his own sword, which he needed her to pull out in order for him to use it. So in all honesty, everything between Yao and Shin, it trickled and had an impact on all the other relationships and plot points within the show.
Right. Scenario. Untak becomes a radio host again. She has an interview with Sunny and Reaper, and they've all become friends again.
I love
yes.
that. I love that.
That's exactly what happens.
Yes.
We're going with that one.
We're making that. That's for sure.
Yes. That, in my mind, that's exactly what happens.
Absolutely.
Because we need that. But yeah, back to what you were saying. I completely agree. They, in a way, they created each other, because the reason that Wang Yao became a Reaper was because it was a punishment for, okay, we're on YouTube, so how do I say this? For,
Smoothest mind.
there you go.
Basically. So if you, that is how you become a Reaper, is if you pass, but your passing was your own doing.
Right.
In other words.
So
And-
it's a punishment for what you did
Yeah.
to yourself.
Yeah.
And where was I going with that?
Well, because the reason he did that in the first place, the reason he
Oh,
ended
it's
things for
because he
himself.
couldn't live with the guilt
Yeah, the guilt of what
of
he did.
what he did to his own wife and brother-in-law.
Yeah.
I think more wife than
Yeah,
the
more
brother-in-law
wife,
part, but still, it was all interconnected.
yeah.
And they, in a way, they basically created each other.
Yeah, because Shin
And
wouldn't have
it-
been the goblin without the king's order to execute him with his own sword.
Right. And the poor girls were just along for the ride.
Yes, the poor girls were just being dragged along for the ride.
But he went to hell for 300 years, and then they gave him a choice to become a Reaper to atone.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know
That
how I
makes
missed
sense.
that part. But I do remember that it was a choice. When you become a Reaper, it is a choice. Like we say it's a punishment, but it is also a choice. It's a punishment because in a sense you don't know anything. You're just kind of
to atone. Like, okay, let's say you commit a crime and the judge is like, you have to go do community service. This is the equivalent of community service
Basically.
in the afterlife. So it is a punishment in a
Yeah.
way.
But a lot of the reason is the choice is because a lot of the times the people who choose to become Reapers to atone for what they did, they choose it because their memories get wiped. Now, I think they did say you can choose to keep your memory, but it seemed like most of the Reapers had no idea about their past lives. So
I would say if you were put in a situation where you were wanting to put the
End
return to sender label on yourself,
yeah,
that
you probably don't want to remember that.
I'm thinking you don't want to remember.
You don't want to remember
what
that?
led to that.
Yeah, or any of it. Yeah. So that's what it seemed like, is like they got to choose, and most, if not all, choose to atone by being Reapers and having those painful memories taken away from them. Problem is then a lot of them struggle throughout the rest of their Reaper years trying. I mean, it seems like some of them have kind of like moved on and like they're not worried about it, but Yao was not the only Reaper who was curious about his past life, who wanted to know, because it was even brought up that another Reaper had remembered his past life and then reunited with his reincarnated wife, and they tried to run off together. So it seems like he wasn't the only Reaper who was maybe not necessarily too happy to forget everything in the end, or at least bothered them. But yeah. So.
Right.
But yeah, the like I said, the bromance between them really was everything. It was like a double date for the whole show, except Sunny and Untalk were like not the third wheels, but like they was just like extra. Like it was like the two guys, it was like, let's go on a double date, and then the two guys at some point ditch the girls and walk off hand in hand to go play games or something. Like that's what it felt like. And the girls are just like behind them, like, yeah, we know. This is them.
I think that the other Reaper served his sentence and got his memories back, just like our Reaper, if I understood correctly.
I'm not sure because when it was first brought up, one of the Reapers was saying it was like gossip, and they were making it sound like it was a bad thing. Like he remembered and he took off, and it sounded like he was doing something he wasn't supposed to do. But
Right.
at the same time, the only reason the Reaper got his memory back was because it was given back to him
As a punishment.
as a
Now,
punishment.
that was a punishment because he was doing stuff he wasn't supposed to be doing.
Yeah, he was showing Untak's card to Shin every time her card came
Right.
up, so that way Shin could save her every time she was supposed to get taken out. He also gave Sunny her memories back because you kiss a Reaper, you remember your past lives. So he gave her the kiss of memory. So he was breaking a lot of rules, basically,
Yeah.
as a Reaper.
Right. Which is why he got his back.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. The bromance was everything for me.
Mhm.
Like, that was perfect. And I guess, like, which can lead us into, so, like, with these discussions, we gave our 10 out of 10 grapefruit rating, and I figured we'd go ahead and discuss spice rating. For this show, I don't think the goal was spice anyways.
Yeah.
So my spice rating would be pretty low, just because it was more fluff than spice,
Mhm.
and I think it needed to be. And I appreciate that it was.
Yeah.
So the spice rating would be low, but I don't think this show is one you should walk into expecting spice.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Agreed.
Because I really think you should watch it for one, the relationship between seeing a broken person, the Goblin, become more human and, you know, kind of like gain his humanity back,
Mhm.
and the bromance for sure,
Oh yeah.
you know, and seeing just like these relationships come back together in a healthy way. That's what I think overall the appeal of this show is just everybody finding real peace without the help of the blasted butterfly god. So, because, yeah,
Yeah. Screw the butterfly god.
screw butterfly god.
Yeah, I think as far as the spice rating go, if we would say a 10 is the highest, 3 or 4 maybe. Because I do
Yeah.
find the kiss scene between Yao and Sunny, I found to be not over the top spicy, but it had some spice to it. It had some heat,
Right.
you know. And
Right.
then when Shin and Untak reunited when she was like 29, they had some nice spice. It was short lived, but it was nice. Okay.
Right.
And we were able to, like I said, I love that they waited until she was that old for them to get to that. Because it was very nice. So, but because it was so short lived, and again, because the other heat was from the other couple, and that was also short lived, I would say a 3 to 4 out of 10 on the spice scale.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It was there, but it was at the end, and it was
was mild.
short-lived, and more of the spice came from the side characters, which is fine,
Yeah, or the very end.
or at the very end.
Yeah.
So for me, the spice level is lower, but that's okay because I really don't think it was hinged on spice. There's
Yeah.
like some K-dramas we're watching where they are completely hinged on spice, and that is their thing, and that is great. But this one, I don't think was meant to be spicy. It was
No.
meant to be fun, and it was meant to be fluff, and it hit all of those marks perfectly.
Yeah, an emotional theme.
And emotional.
It really got
It
into
made you-
the relationships of
God.
everyone.
And like,
The
They're
whole afterlife thing.
oh yeah, like it really made me think.
Yeah.
It is one of those that makes you, I don't know. It really made me stop and think several times. And yeah, the whole afterlife aspect of it is incredible. It makes you stop, it makes you think. It made your mind constantly whirl of like, because there was like a point where this like a lady who I thought meant absolutely nothing like shows up really quick, and you're like, okay, why are we focusing on this lady? What the heck is going on? Who
Yeah.
cares? And come to find out, it was like some lady in the past, not like pre-death past, but like in when he was after he was a goblin, but it was still in history, in
Mhm.
very historical times. She was like some kind of waitress at a noodle establishment,
Yeah.
and he saw future Untak through this lady's eyes.
Because he saw her future, because she wound up being reincarnated as Untak's teacher.
Yeah,
Hmm.
right. And it was, apart from just being a annoying teacher, I thought, who cares about this lady? The fact that he saw his first love through this like lady's eyes, it was
Yeah.
mind whirling.
Hmm. And
Yeah,
he used that. He used that for so long. Poor Untak. He kept talking about his first love, and he played with her so hard on that because he kept talking about his first love, and she's like, "I don't want to hear about your first love." Like she get hella jealous. She was like, "I don't want to hear about that. I don't." And then she'd be like asking people like, "Do you think this or this or this about his past love?" Or, "Honey, you was his first love. He just didn't say it until like 15 years later, okay?" Like, it was
right,
like a huge time jump, and then he was finally like, "You were my first love." You let that poor girl believe that you had another love in a past life that wasn't her for so long. That was not fair. That drove her nuts for so
right.
long.
I think he wanted that because at the same
He
time,
liked seeing her jealousy.
he liked seeing her jealousy, and he was tripping over Mr. Baseball.
True.
So he was just like, you know what? I'm gonna have a first love too. That Mr. Baseball was her first love, but
It was her
he
first
just
crush.
he needed that trump card.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I do think the whole afterlife aspect of this show really made me think.
right.
Made me consider different possibilities, and maybe even hope for different possibilities. I really liked the way they did it. You
Mhm.
know, so like you get 4 lives, which all honesty, I feel like it could be more. But in the show, you get 4 lives. And then
Mhm.
after that, I guess you go either up or down. And I think for the most part, most people tend to go up. I don't know.
You had to fudge up 4 lives to go because they did show somebody going down.
Yeah.
There was this couple that walked in. It was an older couple. The gentleman was a POS,
Yeah.
and the Reaper was like sitting there and go look, and he was the wife got to drink the tea because I believe she wasn't on her last life.
Yeah, no. And what it was is
And
the man, I think he was like drunk driving with his wife in the car and crashed and killed them
yeah,
both.
yeah, yeah,
Cause she
I
was like
believe
yelling
so.
at him. She was like, "I died because of you. This is your fault. You did this to me."
Right, yeah, and I think he was like terrible to her and other. There was like the Reaper brought up stuff.
Yeah.
So in front of her there was these little trays. It was like blocks of wood with like different nails. It kind of like made a nest of nails or something that
Hmm.
the cups would sit on. Anyways, so in front of her, she had her cup of tea, but there wasn't one in front of the other guy.
Yeah.
In front of the guy, and he was just like, "Where's my tea?" And he's like, "You don't get tea
Yeah.
because you aren't going where she's going.
Yeah.
You going down the elevator, basically." And come to find out that not only had he done terrible things in the current life that he was in, but like I think the last 3 lives he had fudged up like the last 3 lives. Like it sounded like to me
Yeah.
anyways.
Well, I think the Reaper had said that, like, even in his past lives, he was responsible for other people's deaths. So, like,
Yeah.
in this life, he was responsible for the death of his wife because he was drunk driving. And they were like, we've given you several lives to make up for these mistakes, and you keep making them. So
Right.
you're out of lives and you're out of chances, and you get to go downstairs and you don't get tea because you deserve to remember everything you've done and
Yeah.
and feel the pain and the weight of that forever, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But I do love the way they did it though, because there were also times, really beautiful times, where someone would pass away and a loved one would be waiting for them. Like when it was time for them to either go upstairs, or one guy had even waited to be reincarnated until his past love passed away. Like it was like they showed one guy where it was like, I guess he went off to war or military or
yes.
something. They had gotten married young or were in love young, and he went off to war or something and he died, and I don't think she ever moved on. And so
No.
when she died of old age, he came back and he was like waiting for her all this time so that they could be reincarnated at the same time. I think either they were being reincarnated at the same time or they were going upstairs at the same time. It was one
I
of the
think,
two.
okay, so from what I gathered, when you die, even if it's not your last life, let's say it's not your fourth life, you can go upstairs for a little bit and then decide later on to be reincarnated.
Yeah. That's what it seemed
So,
like.
like, yeah. Yeah. So I think they went upstairs for at least a little bit, if not forever. There was another beautiful moment where I believe it was like a blind man that had passed away,
Mm-hmm.
and like his seeing eye dog was waiting for him, I believe.
Right, I do love that too. I'm sorry. They said, what I loved is that he died young and left with her old. So when he walked into the tea shop with her, was it that he left old or did she leave young?
Didn't they switch? Like he walked in young, she was old, and then like
When
all of
he,
a sudden she was young, but then they left old together. I
something
don't
like
know.
that. Either way, they had them change into the same age as each other,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. It was a beautiful
It
moment. It
was.
really was.
But yeah, the blind man though.
Wasn't like his seeing eye dog waiting for him?
Well, I don't know if it was he blind? See, I think, yeah, no, maybe it was. And his dog had passed and his dog was waiting for him. And he went
Yeah.
upstairs with his dog,
Right.
basically.
Dog waiting for him made me cry. Yeah,
Right?
it was so
Yes.
gorgeous.
And then even like we talked about seeing Shin's.
And he was blind.
Okay.
Yeah, I was pretty sure it was like his service dog.
Okay.
But I mean, you get really close to your service dogs.
Yeah. Well, and
So.
then like even Shin, we talked about how in the past there was a little boy who was running out of his house,
Mhm.
and Shin stopped him. He saw his future, basically. He saw that this boy was basically being abused by either his father or his stepfather or whoever the man in the house was. And he set it up to where when the father or whoever came outside, he'd trip and fall. And because he saw him doing that. He saw him running outside. So he gave like the boy a nice, like words of wisdom and advice for his life and that kind of stuff. So when that boy grew up and he became an old man and he passed away, Shin was actually at the tea shop and they got to sit and
Yes.
talk and just spend time with each other before the man moved on.
Oh my God, in that moment,
That was a beautiful moment.
that was so beautiful because this guy grew up to do
Amazing
things.
He
This
had a
guy,
nice family and everything.
he had a nice family. I think, wasn't he like a doctor or something, and helped like tons of people? Like tons of people. It was so beautiful. The beautiful moments in the show were incredible. So, and that was one of them. I loved that tea shop because for the most part in that tea shop, they showed you truly beautiful moments that made death seem a little
Not
less
so scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
He gave the boy the right answer for the exam, and the boy didn't write the answer because his calculations gave him another answer. Oh, okay. Um,
He did.
Yeah. And said the boy stayed true to himself, and that's true as well. But yeah, it was some beautiful moments, and like I said, it really made you think. Uh, hmm. I'm one of those people that's probably not such a huge fan of future afterlife and end of things and that kind of stuff. It's always been something that's just kind of, I guess, scared me. So it was nice to see this take on it, and it did make all of that seem a lot less scarier. It's like I honestly wouldn't mind if that was how the afterlife was. If you did get to, because I like the idea of reincarnation. I like the idea of getting to try again and this and that. And so I think that would be cool, to have the reincarnation, but then like I've also been raised with the idea of like, being with your family and everlasting eternity together and that kind of stuff. But so with this, you kind of get that too. You kind of get the best of both worlds. You get to live several lives. You get to have multiple chances and really try and live as much as you can to the best of your ability. But then you also do get to have that everlasting rest with your loved ones afterwards,
Right.
It was a nice concept. I really enjoyed it a lot.
Right. Me too. Me too. It was, I don't know, it was a beautiful view of the afterlife. So,
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
mean, if someone who looks like Yao is waiting at a tea shop for me afterwards, I'm not going to complain. Okay. I'm just saying. I might want to stay and watch a little while, but I'm not going to complain.
it would take me forever to sip that tea. I'll
Right?
just put it that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. But yeah, this was it really was such a good show, such a special show. And yeah, the web that the writers created was out of this world. Me and Mer both write in our free time. We like to, write books and stories and create and that kind of stuff. So from that aspect, I can say to write a story like this that's this big with so many different branches and characters and getting into they are really talented writers to put this together.
I can't imagine because typically when you write a story, you can just wing it, but then you're going to have like plot holes and stuff like that. So typically you have to kind of plot out a general idea to follow, and the plotting graph that they had to have had
to make sure everything connected just right.
It had to have been insane.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
They should teach whoever wrote this,
should teach
whether
a
it was
class.
one or more. Yes, master class on how to write. Because wow, incredible.
I agree. I completely agree.
But
oh goodness, well, I don't know.
Indie thoughts. Indie thoughts.
Indie. No, I mean, like I said, I just think this was really just a wonderful story. Wonderful show. The acting was amazing. All of the actors in the show are so talented and really invested themselves in these characters to the point where they made it feel so real. It was so easy to fall for these characters, get invested in their stories, and that really is a sign of amazing acting. And everyone in the show was that. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because through their acting, they were able to, because you can have an amazing storyline, but if your actors cannot
pull it off,
it's going to fall flat. And that is not what happened here. The actors were able to take us on a journey where we were laughing our butts off one moment, and the next we're crying the next and in tears, and our hearts were breaking for them because they were so invested in the emotions of the drama and portrayed those so well onto the screen.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And if anyone here would like to revisit our journey with that, it is available on our Patreon. We have all our reactions to Goblin as well as many other dramas available on Patreon. Gold tier and up for the K-dramas because they take a little longer to do. So yeah, if you're interested in watching our real-time reactions as we watch the show, or maybe you haven't seen the show and you just want some people to watch it with, it's all over there.
right?
Yeah.
And if you don't want to become a patron, because we understand that is not in everybody's budget, you can watch a K-drama with us every Saturday night at 10 o'clock over on Twitch, because we watch K-dramas over there on Patreon. Like we said, Goblin was voted on. Our Patreons vote on those. On Twitch, however, we watch what we pick. It's one of our picks, but it is free to watch live with us, so you can interact with us on, like I said, Saturday nights at 10 o'clock. And
Central
we are
Standard Time.
Central Standard Time. We are currently watching Rookie Cops, which we only have, I think, a couple of more episodes of that left. And then we are going to start a massive marathon of Boys Over Flowers. We are going to start with F4, which is the Thai version, and end with the original Japanese version of Boys Over Flowers.
Yeah.
So if you want to go on that journey with us, that starts, I don't know, in a couple of weeks, I think.
Well, we're going to be taking a small streaming break at the end of March. Mur has to take some vacation time. So let me pull this up and see. So for those of you who don't know, we stream Fridays, Saturdays. Mur does a solo stream on Sundays where she's also she watches dramas by herself and the chat. So for Rookie Cops, where are we at? We have episode 13 this week, and it has 16 episodes. So 4 weeks. 4 weeks of Rookie Cops, and then we'll have the week before, we'll be finishing it like 2 weeks before our streaming break. So we'll actually be doing like a catch-up reaction stream after we finish it. But when we get back to streaming, beginning of April, around April 5th, April 6th, Saturday, April 6th, that is when we will be starting F4 Thailand Boys Over Flowers.
Right.
So looking forward to that. So looking forward to it. And we're also, because I know I said we watched two dramas on Patreon, which we do. We watch 2 over there, and then we watch 1 on Twitch. The 2 that we watch on Patreon that are only on Patreon, those are the gold tier and up. But if you can't catch the live stream reactions, we do also put those on Patreon, available to all tiers. So all of our live stream reactions go on Patreon to all tiers. You can be the bottom tier and still watch. And we've watched several dramas so far. We've watched Vincenzo, that is available to all tiers. Like we said, Rookie Cops, and then the Boys Over Flowers Thailand will also be on there. But as for other dramas, we are currently also watching Extraordinary Attorney Ooh on Patreon. We're going to be finishing that one up very soon. I think we only have
2 more?
Yeah, I think we only have 2 more episodes of Attorney Ooh, and then after that, we will be starting My Demon also.
Right.
So,
yep.
Lots of change-ups, lots of new shows. We're wrapping up a lot of shows right now. But yeah, it'll give us more to talk about, more to add to the poll for you all to vote on, and get our review and feedback on our shows that we've watched already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. But I think we'll wrap it up. One other thing is, because I have to take a break at the end of March, we are going to be pre-recording our butts off. So we were going to do this once a month. I just don't see how in March, with our pre-recording, for me to take the 2 weeks off that I need to take off at the end of March, how we're going to be able to do a podcast on top of that.
Yeah.
So the next podcast episode won't be until
April,
yeah. Which again is going to be hella crazy, because we're going to be throwing in like birthday streams and stuff like that. But we will figure it out. We'll figure it out, and we'll come back in April. And I apologize in advance that we won't have a March one. But yeah, I'll put out polls later on about what we're going to talk about in April. Yeah. So, but thank you so much for joining us today, and we will wrap this up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and we will